For 72 hours, I didn't say a single word. No phone, no screens, no music, not even the sound of my own voice. Just me, a forest, and a kind of silence that most people will genuinely never experience in their entire lives. And somewhere around hour 31, something in my brain actually started to change. I'll tell you the exact moment it happened, but first, you need to understand why this almost broke me. Now be honest with yourself for a second. When was the last time you were truly, completely silent? No talking, no podcast whispering productivity tips into your ears, no little glowing rectangle within arm's reach. For most of us, the answer is never. Not for years. Maybe not ever. And here's the thing that got me curious enough to try this. Most of us reach for our phones dozens of times a day, often without even deciding to. The hand just goes like it's possessed. So I wanted to know what happens if you remove all of it. Talking, screens, input, for 3 full days, not in a spa, in the actual wilderness. Spoiler. The first night I almost quit. Here's why. So I get to camp, phone off, zipped into a dry bag like a tiny rectangular hostage, and I think, this is going to be peaceful. No, it was not peaceful. Day 1 of silence is basically a breakup with your own thoughts. Except your thoughts absolutely do not take the hint. My brain started narrating everything. There's a rock. That's a nice rock. Why am I thinking about the rock? Oh, did I pay my rent on time? I wonder if I'll finally see a Sasquatch out here. It would not shut up. There's actually a name for this, and a reason it gets louder before it gets quieter. Now, hold that thought, because it explains everything that comes next. And the phantom phone checking? Brutal. My hand kept drifting to my pocket like a golden retriever that forgot it doesn't have a ball anymore. Researchers have a phrase for that twitchy, can't sit still feeling, and it looks a lot like withdrawal, because in a way it is. So here's the first weird thing nobody warns you about. When you remove noise, the silence doesn't feel empty. It feels loud. By the end of day 1, I could hear stuff I'd never have noticed. A beetle, my own heartbeat, the creek that I genuinely thought was a highway when I first arrived. That's not your imagination, by the way. Your brain is constantly adjusting its own volume knob, turning the sensitivity up when the input drops. Strip away the noise of modern life, and your hearing essentially recalibrates. The world was always making these sounds. You'd just been drowning them out, which raises a question I did not expect to be asking on a random day in the woods. If I can't hear this until everything else goes silent, what else have I not been hearing, like in my own mind? Yeah, day 2 answered that. And day 2 was the hardest. Day 2. I hit what I can only describe as the boredom wall. The novelty's gone. You've looked at the trees. The trees have looked at you. Nobody's impressed. And with nothing to distract me, my mind did the thing minds do when you finally leave them alone in a room. It brought up every embarrassing memory I have ever made, in chronological order, with director's commentary. So here's the science. And it's actually kind of beautiful. There's a network in your brain that switches on whenever you're not focused on a task. It's called the default mode network. It's where mind wandering lives. And unfortunately, it's also where rumination lives. The looping, the replaying, the why did I say that to her last week? And this is the part that flipped a switch for me. In one study, researchers had people take a 90-minute walk, half in nature, half in a busy city. The nature group came back with measurably less rumination and quieter activity in the exact brain region tied to that spiraling. The city group, no change. Nature wasn't just nice, it was doing something, quietly, without my permission. Now, here's where it gets genuinely wild. And this is the fact that made me feel slightly less insane for sitting in a forest for 3 days. The Japanese have a name for this whole thing, shinrin yoku, meaning forest bathing. It became part of their national health program back in the 1980s. And researchers there have spent decades hooking people up to monitors before and after time in the forest. What they found? Time among trees can lower your cortisol, your main stress hormone, slow your pulse, and drop your blood pressure. Your nervous system literally shifts out of fight or flight. But this is my favorite part. Trees release airborne compounds called phytoncides, basically the forest's own defense chemicals. And studies found that breathing them in boosted people's natural killer cells, immune cells that hunt threats in your body, and that the effect could last for days after they left the woods. So while I was sitting there feeling like a confused hermit, my immune system was quietly eavesdropping on the trees and taking notes. You don't even have to try. You just have to breathe. Quick thing. By now you're probably thinking you'd love to try this. I was too, and I had no idea where to start. So I ended up making the guide I wish I'd had. Where to go, what to pack, and exactly what your brain does hour by hour so the rough parts don't scare you off. It's the first link in the description if you want it. Which finally brings me to hour 31. Because this is when everything turned. I can't give you a dramatic lightning bolt moment. That's the honest truth. And it's the whole point. It wasn't loud. It was the absence of something. Around hour 31, I realized the narrator had gone quiet. The random thoughts, the cringe reel, the constant padding for a phone, it had all just stopped. And underneath it was a sense of clarity. Not happy exactly, just here, fully, weirdly here. There's a theory psychologists call attention restoration theory. The idea is that focus is like a muscle, and modern life keeps it flexed all day. Emails, decisions, traffic, notifications. It gets fatigued. But nature offers something they call soft fascination, a flowing creek, leaves moving, clouds, stuff that gently holds your attention without demanding it. And that's what lets the focus muscle finally rest and recover. By day 3, I was a different animal. And I mean that, almost literally. I made direct eye contact with a deer and genuinely considered introducing myself. I caught myself watching an ant carry a leaf for like a concerning amount of time. But it didn't feel boring anymore, it felt full. And about that silence changes your brain thing I teased at the start, here's the honest version, because I promised you 100% facts. In one study, mice exposed to 2 hours of silence a day grew new cells in the hippocampus, the brain's memory and emotion center. Now, that's mice, not humans. So nobody can promise you grew brand new neurons in a tent. But it points at something real. Silence isn't the absence of input. To your brain, silence might be its own kind of input. And weirdly, there's research backing the opposite too, that in one study, a couple of minutes of pure silence was actually more relaxing for the body than listening to calming music. Turns out the most restorative track is no track at all. Then it ended. And honestly, re-entry was brutal. The first car I heard felt like an assault. I turned my phone back on, and 300 notifications hit me like a wave, and I just stood there thinking, This is the river I've been swimming in my entire life, and I never once noticed the current. So here's what I actually took from 72 hours of silence in a forest. And you don't need a forest or 3 days to steal it. The silence was never the scary part. The scary part was meeting the version of me that exists when there's nothing left to distract him. And it turns out that guy was fine. Better than fine. He was just buried under noise. You don't have to disappear into the wild. Start with 20 minutes. No phone, no podcast. Just you and some trees or a park, or honestly a single houseplant if that's what you've got. Studies suggest even that short a dose starts dropping your stress hormones. 20 minutes, that's it. And if you do try your own reset, even just the 20-minute one, grab the field guide in the description. It'll save you the part where you are in a tent in the wilderness at midnight, wondering if that noise was a deer or a mistake. For the next video, I'm going to share with you another time I had in nature and my experience with self-forgiveness. If you want to see whether that breaks me, you know what to do. Thank you for joining me. May you be blessed.